This is when it starts getting really fun for me because I can almost taste the alcohol, which I'm going to start consuming soon. But I also get a chance to talk to a friend. Full disclosure, Tom and I know each other before he came here as the ambassador. Tom Nides, his background is he grew up in a Jewish family in Duluth, Minnesota. Your dad was the president of the local shul, and like the Federation was a man about the Jewish community. And Tom has had an unbelievable career, both in business and in public service, sort of hopping between the two, was an assistant secretary of state in the Clinton administration, and was, when I met him, the vice chairman of Morgan Stanley, the very, very important investment bank. And now he's been the ambassador from the United States here for about a year and a half, almost. I was talking to him before we got up here, and I said, look, how's it going? Did you have any idea about what you were getting yourself into? Because this last year and a half has not been trivial. Well, how is it going? Did you have any idea of what you were getting yourself into?
Not a clue. First of all, I want to say, John, I've been friends for a long time, and this is very impressive. This is very impressive, what you've pulled off, what you've created. Congratulations. Yeah, this is something unbelievable. I had no idea. I mean, I think it is. Listen, I knew everyone cared about Israel because, listen, I've been here a zillion times. I've been involved in Israel for a long time. Little Jewish kid from Minnesota. I came here when I was 14. I knew the place, right? But when you're the American ambassador to Israel, that's a whole nother game, okay? And what I didn't realize is for a little country of 9 million people, how many opinions there are.
18.
But it's not just the opinions of this country. Everyone in the world and everyone in America cares about this place. And not just the Jews, by the way. Everyone cares about this place. I have been shocked at the members of Congress, the governors, the mayors, the entertainers. Every Jew is given $4 to UJA. Anyone who has done anything not only wants to visit us and visit me, but has a view of this, which is actually beautiful, okay? Even when things are going a little sideways. Everyone cares about Israel, its history, its importance in the world, and what it's accomplished. And this is just one example of what Israel has accomplished. This country is going to celebrate its 75th anniversary in a couple months. What a hell of a journey. So it's just begun, and I'm proud to be the American ambassador.
We're glad to have you. We're very fortunate to have Tom here as an ambassador. So how would you rate the state of Israel-U.S. ties? I mean, the relationship has often been called the special relationship. It's, extraordinary over the years. But I'm just curious in your view of, historically, we're near an apex of the ties. It's steady, challenging.
Yeah, listen, it's great. I mean, listen, we all are going to have our differences, but the reality of this is that it sums it up what Joe Biden said. Joe Biden, who has been here 10 times, okay, came here 3 months ago, got off the plane. We were standing on the tarmac, okay? It's literally 1 billion degrees out. I'm sitting there with Bougie Herzog, Prime Minister, then Lapid, who had just switched jobs with Bennett. By the way, 3 prime ministers in a year, just to give you a little credit here. And the plane, Air Force One arrives, and Joe Biden gets off the stairs, and he goes to the tarmac and gets onto the podium, and he looks at the audience and says, "To be clear, you do not have to be a Jew to be a Zionist." Okay? That sums up the relationship with this administration, with this government. This is an unbreakable bond. We have Israel's back on security. We have their back on the bond between the United States and Israel. It's rock solid. We are, by the way, friends do talk to friends in very frank ways, so that will happen. but we have an unbreakable bond with the state of Israel.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed recently is that there is a lot of talking in a serious way, but it's done incredibly coolly. I mean, there's, been in the more distant past, more difficult conversations, but it seems as though, one of the challenges you must have is that, look, you very active in politics, you've served in a Clinton administration, Biden administration, you have your own views, okay? And now you're stuck here in the middle of a rather pretty big Israeli controversy relative to our legal system and what we should do, and people demonstrating, and everyone sort of looking, okay, what does the U.S. think about all this? So what does the U.S. think about all this?
Well, first of all, how cool is it? You have a place called Israel, has had 5 elections in 2 years, and 72% of the country shows up again. I mean, we couldn't.
We're addicted.
We couldn't dream of that in America. Okay, we can't get more than 55% to show up once every 4 years. So democracy is alive and well in this country. Make no mistake. The fact that hundreds of thousands of people are hitting the streets in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem a couple days ago, it shows you how alive this place is. And that's important. So I understand President Herzog spoke here earlier. Just to be clear, he's my hero.
Yeah.
Okay? He represents this country in a way that makes America proud, makes Israel proud, and what he is trying to do is what we want to do. We want to bring the people together, to slow down this a little bit, to be thoughtful about what's going on with the judicial reform. Listen, I'm a markets guy, okay? I'm a markets guy. For 75 years, this place has been on fire, okay? Not ups and downs, but look at this place. You're doing something right, okay? And obviously, the judicial system has been in place for a long period of time, which has allowed a flourishing of innovation, technology, money-making, quality. That's happened. Now, it's not perfect. It needs probably reform, just like America's judicial system probably needs reform. My advice has been, very simply, tap the brakes, just a little bit. Try to bring a consensus. Try to bring people together. Try to do things because what binds us together, America and Israel, is the love of democracy, right? That's how we defend Israel. That's how we go to the UN. That's how we talk about Israel. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. It's a thriving democracy, and none of us should forget that. So I am not here to tell Israel what to do, how to pick their justices, how to do their judicial reform. I would just like President Herzog said, it would make all of us happier if there was to build some consensus, to try to do things and bring the country together. But again, we sit here as a friend of Israel to be able to help Israel as much as we can because it's an unbreakable bond.
Amen to that. So you mentioned that you're a markets guy, which I know you are, and a pretty smart one at that. What I'm sure people are asking is, okay, Medved, get some advice from him. Are we at the beginning of a V recovery? I mean, NASDAQ's back up 15%. Even though you're tied up with all this judicial reform and politics stuff, I'm sure you're still in touch with your buddies at the old shop and whatnot. I mean, where are things going, in your opinion?
Well, I still do look at my portfolio. And my wife definitely looks at my portfolio as I'm now not making any money. But that's just a personal problem. Listen, markets go up and markets go down, as Bob Rubin used to say. I do believe, from the fundamental view, we're not going to go into a deep recession in America. I fundamentally believe that Jay Powell, who I have an enormous respect for, he's been my friend for a long time. He's doing what he can do to slow down inflation. It is slowing down. Will there be more rate increases? Probably. Will it go past 5%? Potentially. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the consumer balance sheet in America and Israel is still quite strong, very strong, in fact. And as long as the consumers stay strong, I do not believe we'll be going into what people believe is a massive recession. But listen, at the end of the day, it's really important. Listen, the cost of living here in Israel is exorbitantly high, as it is in the United States. Inflation needs to come down to some, will they get to 2%, not 2%? Listen, no one knows, but I'm very confident that the policymakers are thinking about this in a strategic way, given the the consequences of getting it wrong.
One question which I think involves you probably more than almost anybody else is, what's the future for the Abraham Accords? Are we going to see an expansion of this during your tenure here?
Well, I hope so. Let me just tell you something. As you probably know, I didn't work for Donald Trump, but I don't do politics anymore. But I work for Joe Biden. And one of the first things I did when I got confirmed by the U.S. Senate, when asked a question about the Abraham Accords, I said, I love the Abraham Accords, okay? And I give the former administration an enormous amount of credit for putting it together, because the reality of this is it made Israel a stronger democratic Jewish state. It allowed the relationships between the Moroccans, and the Bahrainians, and the Emiratis, and obviously let's not forget Jordan and Egypt, who were early adapters, to create an unbelievable message to the world that they stand by with Israel. But more importantly, it's all about not only business opportunity, but people to people. It just makes the region stronger. It makes Israel stronger. It makes those other countries stronger. It is enormously important for not only the security of these countries, but the economic security of these countries. And the goal here is to make it even more real, which is to make sure that young people understand the importance of this, because it can't just be the rich elites who can make money by going to the Emiratis. We got to make sure that the young people understand and are educated on the importance of Israel, on the importance of high tech, but the importance of the country. So they ask the question, more countries? Sure. Listen, would I like it in a world of I could wave my magic wand, would I like the normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia? 100%. It's certainly a goal of this administration, that the Biden administration, working with the Prime Minister Netanyahu. Listen, I give Netanyahu an enormous amount of credit. Listen, he was the father of the startup nation in many respects. I mean, he not only as finance minister, but as a minister here, and then as prime minister, he worked to strengthen the economy of this place. And part of that was why he was driven to enhance and to embrace the Abraham Accords. So I'm an enormous buyer of the Abraham Accords. I think it's enormously important. We still need to grow it, develop it, and nurture it. Not forget Egypt and Jordan along the way, and make sure that the countries that are in it for the long term, and that we grow it not only for the top of the house, but also for the youth as we see it coming forward.
So one last question. You've had a lot of achievement in your career. You've been successful in both careers, the political and government service, as well as the business world. What would your parents be most proud of now, if they could be here with us and say, nachat, the special joy that a parent has for a child, is probably the most important thing in Jewish culture. They were looking at you sitting in Jerusalem, living in Israel, 75 years after its refounding. What would they say about their son?
Wow. First of all, my dad passed away about 13 years ago. My mother, 16, 17 years ago. So I haven't had my parents around for a long time. I got brothers and sisters, and I got kids. By the way, you talked about my father. My mother was also the president of Sisterhood and the head of Hadassah. Can't forget her. They'd be proud. I think we grew up we weren't a religious family at all. We were cultural Jews. We grew up in Duluth, Minnesota. I mean, there weren't that many Jews there anyway. And I grew up in a sense of giving back and getting involved, getting engaged, being part of it, not just sitting around and complaining all day, which is a lot of people do, but to get involved, to be part of the conversation, and they would think by giving back, you're paying forward. And I think they would say, Tommy's a good kid, he's the youngest of kids, so he was a little spoiled. But, I grew up with no money. I was a Pell Grant kid. I worked in the dish room at my college for 3 years to pay for school. I think they'd be proud. I hope I'm making them proud. I mean, if they're watching me, I hope they're seeing that I'm trying to do the right thing. As you know, John, I'm not an ideologue. I mean, I grew up I'm a liberal Jew, but I'll meet with anyone. This is what I grew up with. I mean, I spend as much time with the Haredi community and the Palestinians and liberal Jews and the whole schmear in Israel. Okay, and the whole beautiful rainbow. And that's how I was brought up, because I think you can learn something from everyone. And I think all I want to do is the right thing. I really have no ideology when it comes to this. I just want to do the right thing. I want to keep this relationship with Israel and the United States unbreakable.
Amen. Tom Nides, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, my friend. Thank you.